Your engine starts running hot, your temperature gauge creeps toward the red, or your coolant disappears and nobody can tell you why. So you take the car to a shop and they hand you an estimate that looks more like a mortgage payment. Here's what they don't tell you. In most cases, the cooling system isn't broken, it's neglected. And the damage was done long before that warning light ever came on. By simple mistakes almost anyone could have avoided. In this video, I'll show you 12 things you're doing wrong every time you flush your radiator, and the exact Japanese method that helps engines survive past 400,000 kilometers. And don't skip number 11. It's the one-step professional mechanics quietly do themselves, but rarely mention when you're standing at the counter. Let's get into it. Number 1. Never mix coolant types. This one gets almost no attention, and it should. There are fundamentally different coolant chemistries on the market. IAT, the traditional green coolant, OAT, often orange or red, and HOAT, usually yellow or pink. These are not interchangeable. Mixing an OAT coolant with an IAT coolant does not create a blend. It creates a chemical reaction that can form gel, and that is exactly as bad as it sounds. Gel inside your cooling system blocks passages, coats the thermostat housing, and turns coolant into something resembling petroleum jelly. Always identify what coolant is already in your system before adding anything. If you are unsure, perform a full flush using distilled water. Start fresh and use only the coolant specified in your owner's manual. And speaking of distilled water, number 2 may completely change what you've been pouring into your radiator. Number 2, never use tap water. You've probably done this at least once. The coolant looks slightly low, a bottle of water is nearby, and you think, water is water. Wrong. Tap water contains minerals, calcium, and chlorine that bond with aluminum inside the radiator and create scale deposits. Over time, these deposits narrow radiator passages like arterial plaque. A mechanic I once worked with in Osaka cut open a failed radiator from a European vehicle that had been topped up with tap water for 3 years. The internal passages were almost completely blocked. Always use distilled water. Always. It costs almost nothing and prevents thousands of dollars in damage. But even with perfect water, most people flush their radiator on the wrong schedule. Number 3 surprises almost everyone. Number 3, flush on the right schedule. Most people fall into one of 2 extremes. They either flush far too late or far too often. Both can cause damage. Old coolant becomes acidic and corrodes metal components. But flushing modern long-life coolant too frequently removes protective additives before they finish working. Many modern Japanese vehicles using OAT coolant are designed for intervals of 5 years, or roughly 200,000 kilometers. Flushing after only 2 years wastes money and disrupts the additive chemistry. The smarter approach is simple. Test coolant pH once per year using inexpensive test strips. If the pH drops below 7, flush the system, regardless of mileage. Data over habit. And while we're talking about overlooked components, number 4 is something many drivers forget even exists. Number 4, don't ignore the heater core. Most people focus entirely on the radiator. Meanwhile, the heater core sits inside the dashboard, circulating the same contaminated coolant and getting ignored. The heater core is essentially a miniature radiator with even narrower passages. During a flush, the cabin heater must be set to maximum heat so coolant circulates through the entire system. Skip this step, and months later, your heater may suddenly stop producing warm air. And the next mistake is just as easy to overlook and just as expensive. Number 5, always check the radiator cap. People obsess over coolant and forget the cap. Your radiator cap is a pressure valve, typically rated between 13 and 16 psi. A weak cap lowers system pressure, which reduces coolant boiling temperature and creates localized boiling inside the engine. Engineers call this nucleate boiling. Tiny vapor bubbles collapse against metal surfaces and can damage the water pump through cavitation. I've seen water pump failures traced back to a $12 radiator cap. During every flush, test the cap using a pressure tester. $12 versus a $300 repair. Your choice. Number 6. Watch your flush chemicals. Auto parts stores sell many radiator flush chemicals, promising miracle results. Here's the problem. Some are highly acidic. If left inside the system too long, especially in older aluminum radiators, they can slowly eat metal from the inside. The Japanese method avoids harsh chemicals whenever possible. Instead, perform 2 or 3 distilled water flush cycles. This removes most contamination without risking corrosion. Chemical cleaners should only be used in severe cases, and strictly according to timing instructions. Even an extra 30 minutes can cause permanent internal damage. But before flushing anything, there's an even more important step most people skip. Number 7. Inspect before you flush. A radiator flush is not like rinsing a coffee mug. First, inspect the old coolant. Healthy coolant appears bright green, orange, or pink depending on type. If it looks brown, rusty, or smells burnt, contamination may already exist. In some engines, coolant turns into thick sludge due to slow head gasket leaks, introducing combustion gases. Flushing blindly can push contamination deeper into the system. Always inspect first, always. Number 8. Open the thermostat during flushing. This is where many partial flushes happen. The thermostat remains closed when the engine is cold. That means large portions of the cooling system never get flushed. The Japanese method briefly runs the engine during the flush cycle until the thermostat opens. Then the engine is shut down and allowed to cool before draining. This extra step turns a 60% flush into a nearly complete system flush. Number 9. Bleed the air after refilling. After refilling coolant, many people assume the job is finished. It isn't. Air pockets create hot spots where coolant cannot circulate. These hot spots often cause mysterious overheating problems. Fill slowly. Squeeze the upper radiator hose repeatedly. Run the engine with the heater set to maximum heat. Then recheck coolant levels once the thermostat opens. The Japanese mechanic I mentioned earlier repeated this process 3 times before finishing. That vehicle exceeded 400,000 kilometers. Number 10. Check hoses and clamps. Before closing everything up, inspect all hoses and clamps. Radiator hoses often fail internally before visible damage appears. Squeeze each hose firmly. It should feel flexible, not brittle and not soft. Also, check clamps for corrosion and proper tension. 2 minutes of inspection can prevent a roadside failure. Number 11. Final check at operating temperature. Professional mechanics quietly perform this step themselves. After completing the flush, run the engine until full operating temperature, about 95 degrees Celsius. Inspect the entire system under pressure. Check connections, drain plugs, and the water pump area. Leaks often appear only when the system reaches roughly 15 psi. 5 minutes of inspection can prevent a breakdown days later. Number 12. Never flush a hot radiator. We end here because this mistake causes the most injuries. Operating coolant reaches temperatures between 90 and 110 degrees Celsius under pressure. Opening the radiator cap too early turns the system into a pressure release. Severe steam burns can happen instantly. The rule is simple and non-negotiable. Allow the engine to cool for at least 2 hours before touching the cooling system. Not 30 minutes, 2 full hours. Because none of the advice in this video matters if you get injured before the job even begins.